Good evening. We'll now call the City Council regular meeting to order for July the 8th, 2019. Please rise for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be given by City Manager David Flowers.
Unless that's Melody Davis right there. It's not? Okay. Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the blessings you've given us. We thank you for this rain. We'd ask that you'd keep everybody safe during that and make sure that everybody gets home safe. Father, we'd ask that you'd be with the City Council tonight and all the staff members here and help them to make the decisions that are going to be in the absolute best interest of the city's citizens of Avon Park. We'd ask that you be with us in everything that we do and everything that we say and help us to be a light that shines for you in our community. In Jesus' name we pray this. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Mr. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Here.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Here.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First up under consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from June 24th, regular City Council meeting. Be looking for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda identified under B4 for June 24th, 2019, 6 p.m. Regular council members meeting.
June 10.
June 24th.
24th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or changes? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Under attorney updates, we have the inspections of residential rental properties.
So the proposal for that is in your book. I based it on City of Temple Terrace, modified yours, because City of Temple Terrace has been through litigation on theirs and survived. So it seemed to me to be a better program. I've also got your former insurance attorney, Donovan Roper, looking it over. He said he would do so for free.
Okay.
And will give us comments on it. That's why it's here for discussion. And I'd like you all to look it over and see if there's anything that you think that we're going wrong on this. And otherwise, I'll once I get Donovan Roper's comments and so on, I'll finalize it and get it ready for you to pass.
Will they be commenting on what a rate structure would look like?
Yep. I mean, your rate structure is whatever it costs you to do the inspections, and I have left that up to the staff to figure that out. I guess it's whoever does that. It's fire department, inspectors, and sometimes it's a combination fire department, code enforcement.
We based just a loaded labor rate on the code enforcement staff handling this right now. I'm not sure what methodology was used in the past to come up with it, but a loaded labor rate for administration, supervision, and in actual inspection with the time allotted for that comes out to about $30 an hour.
All right, well, then you need to figure out how much time it's going to take to do these. And bear in mind that you can charge for the cost of the vehicle as well, truck, car, whatever. And overhead is fine, as long as you can make sure that overhead's in there. That's what you mean by loaded?
Yep.
Okay.
I think historically we were around, what, $37?
$37.50.
Is the magistrate considered overhead?
Magistrate wouldn't be doing this, and you can't charge for the magistrate under
Okay.
Chapter 162 of Florida
Okay.
statutes.
Just wondering.
Okay. Well, does anyone have any questions? Or
Yeah, I have a question. Do you predict or do you think it would be more than the $37.50 what we've charged in the past?
Probably slightly.
Slightly?
It's
the
not
reason
going
why I
to
asked-
be like $100. It's not going to be like that.
Because I've gotten a few calls in reference to this, and I couldn't tell them.
I got a call also from a property owner that owns several properties, and she was asking if she gets an inspection from the health department every year, or no, as needed, which she said is sometimes 4 or 5 times a year. And she was wondering if, since that's basically the same criteria, could it get inspected once by the city and then continuously inspected by the health department, and that meet our codes and standards? And I don't know that it does, because that's only as good as the family that's in there at the time that we actually do it.
I don't know that they're the same. I mean, I do know that there are some state regulations that are required for multiple unit situations, like apartment complex we're basically preempted from charging them for inspecting their properties, apartment complexes and things like that, because the state does that. But it leaves us an opening to inspect as to more local issues such as fire and things like that. But I don't know exactly what that is, but we should talk about that. That's one of the things I was going to mention.
Okay.
Are those for migrant camps
No.
where
this-
the health department comes in and inspects, or is that
No,
just
this is regular.
typical residential?
Mhm.
I've never heard of such a thing.
I do recall something about multiple units in excess of a certain number,
Yeah.
regulated by the health department on a regular basis. But I don't know that they're the same types of inspections that you do. And if they are, then you should probably work something out and put it in the ordinance. But if it's not, then obviously there are different reasons, and perhaps the health department can waive theirs or
Right.
whatever in favor of ours. since we're gonna-
I haven't seen those, but she did say that they were not so much as regulations as they were guidelines that, with like a checklist that the health department went through, and they'd put something on a sticker inside the residence, and that was good until the next time. But
Right.
I asked her to bring me the information on it, and I don't have it yet.
Did you know whether or not she gets charged by the health department?
There is a fee for the health department, the initial one, I think. Don't quote me on that. Not really sure.
And David, what about for the people that, that have a house, a 4-bedroom house or something like that, and they turn it into a boarding house, a rooming house or something like that? Would that be considered one house or one inspection, or each individual parcel would be $37.50?
So she's asking if it's a 4-bedroom apartment, is that four units or is it one? I don't know that off the top of my head, but
I
it's a
don't know.
good question to
Because
ask.
those are the questions that I'm getting.
Yeah, well, if you can send those to me, I can look them up and clarify the ordinance to encompass those.
Okay.
If you just send those to me or send them to David,
Okay.
and he can send them to me. Because, we want it to be as clear and as fair as possible. Temple Terrace, I don't know how it's ultimately turned out, but their issue was inspecting of unoccupied units. In other words, ones that are not being rented out, which is an issue. And clearly, if you're refused access, we have to go under the administrative warrant statute to do that. So,
Okay.
that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Do we have any further questions?
And as soon as those answers get answered, you'll report those back at the next council meeting, and we'll be able to move forward. Do you think that this will be done by then if you get these answers, or?
I don't want to force, Mr. Roper to give us a response immediately since he's doing it for free. But if you guys want to do that, I did offer to pay, but he said, no, I'll do it for you guys for free. He represented us as an insurance company attorney for quite some time.
But
And
you think we'll get it within the next month or so? Because,
I do, yeah, it's
budget's
not
going
gonna
to
be long.
start, they're going to
Yeah.
have to project
No.
this in the future budget.
I don't think it's going to be that long, no. It's going to be within a month or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's really just, I think it's okay, but I think it's an abundance of caution. I'm having him look it over because he's litigating that Temple Terrace case.
And so if it does go into effect, let's say this council approves it and puts a cost on it and stuff, would it go into effect immediately, or do you have to wait a period of 6 months or a year? Occupational licenses usually kick in around September, so I don't know, inspections just depend on when something becomes available. Would it be immediate? How would we notify the public?
Well, you can do it that way, or you can have all roll over at the same time. In other words, establish a date like September before your annual that everybody has to renew their permits and roll it over, and then it'll be amortized for the period of time it's remaining. If they come in June, it'll be the remaining months as a fraction of the year before then in October. It's like occupational permits can be done.
Oh, excuse me, one other question.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is just for rental housing, correct?
Yes, residential.
Residential, I mean, yeah,
Residential,
okay.
right. Commercial is covered by the state,
Yeah.
and we're preempted from that. There are some residential that are also preempted if they're apartment complexes and things like that. And we're not attempting to regulate those. But at some point in the future, you can regulate that aspect that is not regulated by the state. It's preemption, but it's a limited preemption. So it just simply says, when I say preempted, the state says you can't regulate this, because we're regulating it.
I got you.
But in this case, it's limited because they say, we do this, and you can't regulate that. But if there's other things that you regulate, that's okay. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, moving on to item number 6, code enforcement adopt citation.
yeah, it's like 90% completed. I really need to get, one of the things I was going to talk to David about, and was that we need to get together with the code enforcement person and actually figure out what we're going to put in the schedule of citation ordinances or code provisions that you want to include, because there'll be some things that just don't fit that type of enforcement procedure. Like high grass is okay,
Right.
but it's usually better to handle that through the magistrate's procedure than through the citation,
Correct.
because you can't go there every day and tell them, whereas in a magistrate, they can give you a continuing violation, and it mounts up every day, the daily penalty, until it's completed. So I think it's going to be ready to go once that's done. I went through your code and presumed to add the classes in on a lot of things myself, but I want you guys, obviously, you're going to have to review it and determine whether it's going to be a class 1, which is a low penalty, compared to a class 4, which is a high penalty. I just plug things in just as a placekeeper, and then you guys can come back and tell me what you think about that. Because clearly you're not going to charge $400 for a high grass situation.
No, primarily we were looking for something that would give the sheriff some authority to enforce some of our ordinances. That's,
And that'll be in there.
yeah.
Which, by the way, a lot of cities have 2 forms of code citation format. This one here, which gives a favorable penalty if you pay without going to court, but you have the option to go to court, in which case you pay the higher penalty if the judge will issue that. And then the other style is, it's immediate. This is what you're getting, and for things that are health, safety, welfare types of issues, so that it's like there's no warning. It's just you got it. You can do the same thing under this. You don't have to give a warning on this, but you're still stuck with the reduced penalty and so on. Whereas if you go to the judge, on a serious health, safety, and welfare situation, he's more likely to give the maximum, which is $500.
Okay.
And by the way, under code enforcement, under part 1 is 162, the special magistrate, you can't give for a first-time penalty up to $500. You can only give up to $250. It's only subsequent penalties you can do up to $500.
So are you going to be bringing a schedule back to us? Or?
I will.
Okay.
Like I said, I've done a lot of that already. I don't want to presume some of those things that they're going to want in there. It may be code enforcement feels more comfortable doing it the special magistrate way and this the citation way. But things like noise ordinance and so on, those are going to be mostly citation, because they're not going to want to appear at a special magistrate circumstance. They're more comfortable in a courtroom than coming to your special magistrate.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, moving on to item number 7, have the Duke Energy temporary easement for construction and access.
Duke Energy has approached the city to seek a temporary construction easement to facilitate the placement of utility infrastructure. Mr. Jerry Miller is here tonight with Duke Energy to discuss this temporary access and construction easement.
Okay. Come on up, Jerry.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, council members. So, last time I was here, we discussed the new core transmission lines and the easements and other things surrounding that. So now that we know where the poles need to go and the stakes are in the ground, and I'm sure that you've seen them,
Yep.
We need, for the city's properties, we need 2 areas. It says on the document museum, but it's the community center, and it would be between Main Street and the drive-throughs.
Mhm.
There's a pole that's going in that area, kind of a best of all cases because there's hard pavement there. And so the easement would just allow us access to be there. The easement does say 6 months. We're in the middle of storm season, and we don't think we're going to have any storms soon, even though there's one brewing right now. But if we had to pull off for some reason, we just did it for just to be safe. But really, it'll probably be a 2 to 3 day construction where they set the pole, and then they would have to come back then in a few weeks and pull the wires, probably need access again. We don't think that, that particular location, not much of an inconvenience, but if something was going on, we certainly will work around the city. If there was something going on that we need to avoid, absolutely, we'd work around that.
Great.
And the other location, if you can picture just north of there, I think it's called the Government Center where the sheriffs are at.
Mhm.
A touch north of that, it's in that grassy area, another location there. So that, I mean, if you drew a big rectangle, it's the library or the community from Main Street, but it's where those, the pole placements would be.
Okay.
We're just looking for access to do the pole setting. Again, 2 to 3 days probably per pole, and then to pull the wires in.
All right.
The only issue I have with this is on paragraph 3. It says that they have the right and privilege to remove any and all trees.
Yeah. That's a good point. Can I address that?
Sure.
Okay, so that's a great point. I met with Public Works today, and we discussed where the community center is. There's no trees. I mean, it's
Mhm.
blank, so it's not an issue. Because it does mention fences and gates, and there's none of that either. That other location, there is a tree. It's covered in the easement anyway, but the tree, you can put your hand through the trunk. I mean, it is an oak tree, but it's absolutely, the whole center of it is rotted out.
Yeah.
So it needs to come out at some point, and I mean, it's not that there's a little chunk. I mean, there's a whole area, and I took a picture last time I was here of it, but I mean, it needs to come out. It is rotten, and like I said, we talked today, and Richard,
Robert.
I apologize. Robert agreed with that.
The only thing I could add to that then is, I'm not familiar enough with your land development code, but sometimes there's a permit process for removal of trees and that, in which case you would have to conform with that. That sounds to me like you wouldn't have any problem so long as an arborist agreed with you.
Yep.
Because most of those types of provisions require arborists sign off on the fact that it's, not a healthy tree and should be removed. Other than that, I leave it to you.
Where's the tree again? Is it on the mall?
No.
Not on the
no,
mall. There's
no.
not, none of them are on the mall, right?
It's
Right.
behind
Where-
behind the police station.
Behind the police station, close to the closest one to the railroad, the
the
hole's
back?
probably 2-3 foot tall and 6 or 8 inches wide.
Okay.
Um,
Are these poles primarily east-west? I mean-
North and
probably
south.
North-south.
They're
south.
north, okay, they're north-south, but the little red dots represent the poles themselves? Or
No.
just the sites that you need to have as a site to work on this?
What are these red dots?
I don't have.
I don't think the red dots
I don't-
correspond to
I don't-
anything.
Yeah, what are the red dots?
This
I don't
came
have
from a
that one.
GIS map. Those are water valves.
Right.
Okay, I
Okay.
didn't know what those were, and I thought those were where the poles were going.
No,
I
no.
mean, I couldn't tell it.
Right.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
Not at all.
They're just
They're about
dots.
600 feet apart. I mean, not exactly. And, across Maine, we tried to push them out as far as we could push them out without going an inch taller on the poles.
We appreciate that.
Uh,
Any other questions for Jerry?
Oh, and I'll just comment that, I understand that it's in your previous easement form, but that does say you have to comply with all laws. So if it's in the Land Development Code, that you have to get a permit. And I don't know that it is. It may not be. It is in many cities, but you'd have to go ahead and get that done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the agreement
Temporary access?
of the temporary access for construction between Duke and the city of Avon Park, referenced as item number D7.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions, comments? Yes, sir.
It's important to note that with this also, this is not going to inconvenience any business. Nobody's going to have to be misplaced or relocated or anything while this is going on. This is not going to affect any of that.
Okay.
Is there not more property to store this stuff on the railroad easement than it is a city easement?
You have to utilize part of the city easement just because of the.
There's no
Proximity.
store, but there's no storage.
There's not
Is
storage.
was that the question?
Yeah.
There's not a storage, it's just to bring the truck in to physically set the pole.
And are you gonna leave the truck there, I mean, for a while, a period of time?
I would say if it takes 2 days, they probably may leave the crane or whatever sets the pole, 2 to 3 days max. Yeah,
How do you haul these poles?
trailers.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just one big huge trailer, or are the poles in like Legos where you can like snap them in?
Yeah, they do come apart and
Okay.
it's click, 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 but they're not Legos.
So, but you know what I mean, they
Yeah,
do click
exact-
in.
yeah.
Okay, so
Click,
which
click,
access
click.
would you be coming into town? Because I know that the mall, for example, doesn't have really good turn radius. And
Right.
so you might end up on top of the mall to turn and stuff. So I mean, have you all figured out which way you're gonna come in and out of town?
You know, I'd love to say that. I know, yeah, probably. Kevin, would you know that? Well, if you know the answer, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
He's got to come
Yeah.
up.
okay, you
We'll have-
need to come
have
up.
you come up
and
here.
Say your name for the record.
I just wanna
So
make sure
Kevin
that if,
Burke-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Kevin Burke is our project manager,
Okay.
and Gail Simpson's here with me as well. She's doing the outreach.
Okay.
So I thought if anybody had, individual things from.
Yeah, I mean, the only concern I have is that the turn radius is meant for horses and buggies from, 1910. So, will the truck have to go through the middle of the mall to make a turnaround, or are they gonna come in through the truck route or something? Because there is a constant problem of trucks getting on top of the mall and damaging our sprinklers, and also causing big, huge ruts in the grass, and our maintenance people are continuously cleaning those up. So we just wanna make sure that if that happens, that you'll fix the mess you leave behind, if it does happen.
Yeah, we'll definitely fix them. So I'm Kevin Burke,
Yeah.
Duke Energy. And that's true, they come in 3 different sections, so they're all getting delivered. Then the truck delivery companies actually deliver the sections, they bring them in, they have a delivery plan to make sure that we minimize the impacts. And then any, running or that kind of stuff gets fixed at the end of the project.
Okay.
I don't think in this area, I don't see an issue, but I will say maybe where the sheriffs are, maybe some ruts, just because it's dirt next to the old, not the newer ones, but the old railroad. If there are red, it's in the agreement that we would restore it back to original.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for them?
Nope.
Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock,
No.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to staff updates. We have the discussion of the fire assessment for fiscal year 1920.
Yes, we're required to pass a resolution setting the fire assessment fee for residential and commercial properties. This item is continuing that process, which we started at the last meeting. We did speak with Chris Rowe. I had a very good conversation with him. Ricky and I had a conference call with him, and as well as Chief Marcy. Right now, I think what you're wanting us to tell you is what the actual assessment pays for as far as the costs of the department.
Right.
About 30%.
Currently, it's 30%.
About 30%. That's where we're at right now with the current budget.
And we're already over budget.
We're over.
At the last meeting, it was stated that we're already over budget with the fire department.
That would be a combination of the assessment and your budgeted amount.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Wait a minute, you said we're over budgeted.
I'm sorry.
Those-
No, not we're over budget. We're
Oh.
under budget is what I meant to say. I'm sorry. At the last meeting, you had said, I thought it was 80% that the assessment paid for. So anyway, I think you were able to answer that we were already over our allocated dollars for the fiscal year, and that was just the budget itself for the fire department.
I'm not sure. I follow.
Right, the money that comes, let me identify myself first. Rick Helms, Finance Director. The budget for the fire department, you have, already exceeded what that assessment amount
The assessment
is
amount.
that has come in for the year. If you look at the expenses of the fire department, the amount that comes in from the assessment will just slightly exceed what you pay in the retirement for the firefighters.
And the rest
Right.
comes out of the general fund.
That's correct.
Correct.
So we are going to be at a loss at the end of the year.
Well, basically, you supplement the operations of the fire department out of your general fund dollars.
But my question was it budgeted sufficiently for this year, or are we going to have to take money out of the general fund and subsidize the fire department this fiscal year?
I think that you will be within budget at the end of the fiscal year. And that includes the fire assessment plus what was budgeted and allocated for the fire department out of your general fund dollars.
Right.
That's a combination of the two.
Rick, let me ask you a question. The fire assessment is not supposed, I'm asking, is it supposed to fund the full fire department or just a portion of it?
The fire assessment can fund almost 100% of it. There's certain things that cannot be funded through the fire assessment based on our discussions that we had with Mr. Rowe, and you would expect that because there are certain things, and it's related more to the provision of emergency medical services and what would not qualify under that. The great majority of what you do in a first responder status does qualify under the fire assessment, so it could be reimbursed under the fire assessment.
Wait a minute, I thought that the first responder stuff was not qualified for assessment.
According to Chris Rowe, it is reimbursable or can be funded under the fire assessment.
I think that was the big discussion last year, that it was not supposed to be, I just can't vaguely remember that it was not supposed to be funded under the
Yeah.
fire department.
Well, I think-
Since
just
the
was-
city does not run a separate EMS service, I think that is a qualifying factor that allows the first responder cost to be paid under the fire assessment.
So since we are going to run a first responders or not going to, I barely
No,
could hear you.
we are running first responder.
But we don't have a standalone EMS department.
That's what I,
Right.
okay.
Right.
What's the total budget for the fire department? Is it like 1 point?
One second, I'm gonna tell
Okay.
you.
It's over $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned this figure the last time while he's looking that up, but a $20 increase is worth approximately $107,000.
107?
107.
We're currently at 80
You're at 80,
flat.
right?
The highest
Did we
we've
have that
ever,
one time?
You had 160 at one time.
no, we
Yeah,
actually
we
had
had one-
185 at one time?
You did, and then it was
185 was
changed.
the highest, yeah.
But that
Um,
was before you altered the square footage. In those days, it was considerably different. The reason why it came down so low was because there's a square footage issue, and also with the mobile home parks or the residential
We
parks.
changed the methodology.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. So what was that total budget was? I didn't get that.
The total budget for your fire department for this fiscal year is $1,518,834.
1.5.
One thing to bear in mind as you continue, and it's not a huge thing, but you're required to give, if you go above a certain amount beyond what you're funding right now into the
140,
assessment,
the 140.
then you're going to have to notice everyone. But
Right.
if you don't, you'll just have to notice those people that are new to the community.
That is correct. If we went up to 140, If we didn't go over that threshold, if you went up to 140, we would have to do a public notice to all the new people that have come on since the last public notification.
So the increase we had talked about last week about a brush truck, and I believe the estimate was $80,000 for the brush truck. Obviously, assets like that, depreciable equipment can be purchased with the fire assessment, right?
Well, you can, but you can use the enterprise fund for that as well. I mean, I'm sorry, the infrastructure fund.
Or a combination thereof. Now, when you say infrastructure fund, that's not a.
1 cent sales tax.
Okay.
Anything with a lifespan of more than 5 years. Is that correct, Ricky?
Yeah.
That's correct, but it has a specific designation for emergency vehicles in there, which any of your fire equipment qualifies as emergency vehicles.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's important for everyone to understand that this is kind of a larger issue, not just with the fire assessment, with the funding of the fire department. The current fire assessment only funds 30% of the fire department, which means that 70% comes out of the general fund and other funds. So that 70% that we're funding, we now have a strain that we're trying to use some of that money for other things. We need to do quite a few upgrades to our water system, to our lift stations, buy equipment, take better care of our green areas and things like that. So if we don't find another funding source for that, we're still going to have that same constraint.
Right.
And the money has to come from somewhere. So I think the theory here is to raise it some so that the fire assessment money pays for a higher percentage of the fire department instead of all that money coming from general fund dollars and standard ad valorem taxes and things like that. So that we can use that money for other parts of the city.
Both the infrastructure dollars, that would end up being for other infrastructure. So, you know, it would just go in another direction if you increased it. And, I mean, your goal was to increase it by 20%, David? The fire assessment?
No,
Or that was just a number that
that's
you
just a
threw out?
number. I'm just telling you
That was
what
$20
$20 would
Yeah,
generate.
okay. Well, that would be $20 per home. It wouldn't be the same for a residential. I mean, is there a way, I know that there was a software or an Excel spreadsheet that used to be on the Old City website that you can just plug in your address and put in the dollar value of what the assessment would be, and bling, it would just pop up what your new assessment would be if you were a commercial business, because those are based off of square feet. So I don't know if that's something that we could do for the public so that they can have an idea if it has an increase. I think it would be fair for them to have that info.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they would get it or how you would put it on the website if we have that ADA thing. But, you know, I know that it's a anyway, it's just a plug in your number and find your strap number and it just pops right up. But if, you know, any type of raise of that magnitude, I mean, that's $455,000. That's the 30% we're paying right now. So if we increase that, it's the ones that are going to see the biggest hit are going to be the commercial businesses. That's just me thinking that out loud. And they're already paying a county millage on top of I know we only have a 30-cent millage, but they're already paying 8.73% with the county or something like that.
8.5, I think.
Yeah. So I just would want to make sure that it's equitable. I really don't want to hit the businesses because after all, you know, we're giving a lot of concessions to some businesses and our small moms and pops aren't getting anything from us. So I just really don't want to have a big hit on them. They are our bread and butter. But anyway, if we could get that spreadsheet somehow posted somewhere so people can look at it and they can play with the numbers and enter their own amount. But other than that, I know you're getting ready with budget anyway, so, I mean, I'd like to see what infrastructure projects you have in mind, and I think that would come down to Ronnie figuring out what, you know, lift stations and stuff. That way we see exactly how much money we need for all of those infrastructure assets. I mean, I don't know how bad a shape are they in?
Each one is different. Overall, I'd say brand new being 100%. In some cases, they're 40. Some cases, they're 30.
And how did they get so bad?
Neglect.
Just lack of spending on the maintenance. Over
Maintenance was
5 to
ignored.
10 years. They were just completely ignored, and when they did repair or replace something, they were given inferior aftermarket parts or pieces.
So our
Just
crown
picking up.
jewel isn't as shiny as we thought it was.
It's not.
No.
It's not.
Go figure.
So are you going to be able to do all of this with, our future budget? Are you aware? I mean, I know the fire assessment plays into this, and this will be discussions on budget issues as well. Are you crunching the numbers to see exactly how much money you're going to need to get the worst ones taken care of? Are you going to do a plan of 5 years so that the ones that are at 50% might be at 40% the following year? Or are we talking replacement or what? Do you know?
Right now, council, what we're doing is covering up a lot of the hemorrhaging.
A lot of the what? I'm sorry?
The hemorrhaging as far as
Okay.
the repairs.
Trying to stop the
on a lot of
bleeding.
your infrastructure. So we are going by and systematically replacing or repairing damaged pumps, getting our SCADA system online, gates that were torn down, being put back, signage that's missing. I mean, the list goes on and on. But it's not to the point where we have to replace everything. Your infrastructure as it sits underground is in good shape. It's the mechanics above ground that you see that have been left to just fall apart that we're in the process of repairing. We've already repaired and replaced several of your pumps, close to 10 of those out of the 36, 37 lift stations you've got now. So the rest of them are operating, but they are going to need a lot of attention going forward. So we've stopped a lot of the bleeding as far as your maintenance issues, and we're slowly starting to turn the tide on it. A lot of the generators that we had in place had not been maintained in the last 5 years. That was the last time we could see that an oil change was done, or the filters were replaced, or the fuel was even replaced, or that they had even been turned over to make sure that they were operable. Since then, we've gone through and changed all of that. We've replaced the oil, the filters, the fuel, we've turned them over, we made sure that they're working correctly so that we feel assured that if we had some sort of an event, they will work.
And we recently purchased, I think it was 3 generators.
We have.
So are those for this issue as well?
No, ma'am, these are the ones that are in place at your lift stations.
Okay.
That are left there on site. They're permanently mounted with what's known a belly tank, a diesel fuel tank underneath. The portable ones that you're referring to, all of those have been systematically gone through and tested to make sure that they are in peak operating condition, and they are undercover in our warehouse right now, ready to be deployed. So there are 0 issues with any of the equipment such as that.
So let me ask you a question. With all the Band-Aiding and stop the bleeding and everything that you're saying that you're doing, how much is all that going to cost? And is that factored into the budget?
That's what he's.
It's not factored into, it will be factored into the future budget, what you'll
Okay.
see for next fiscal year. Our goal is to keep it running, but without asking you to pay for everything all at once. We can keep it going and we can spread this out over a few years. So when you see a budget, it's not going to be an all-inclusive, we need to repair every single thing this fiscal year. So we're going to keep everything going, but we'll bring it to a little bit at a time so that it's not such a hard number to try to swallow for the budget and for the city.
Well, this is all a revelation to me. Just dumbfounded. Because anyway, you know, we all thought that this was our pride and joy, and it turns out that it's really not what we thought it was, and we're suffering the consequences now, and we're going to end up having to pay for it.
It's not.
So anyway, it's got to be, it has to be done, I guess. I know that we have some project money in there right now. I don't know if it's for sidewalks and stuff. Are we going to be moving any of that money around for this, or are we still working on other projects? I don't know where. Anyway, this is budget talk. It has nothing to do typically with what we're talking now, but it does relate back to the fire assessment. So
It does.
I guess it's going to depend on how much money we're going to be forking out to repair all of these things that are at 30 or 40% and alleviate more of the hemorrhaging to figure out what the fire assessment's going to be.
Correct.
So it depends on you. So we won't know our budget numbers until he figures out what he's going to have to do.
Well, it's going to be a far higher amount than even raising it to the max is going to cover.
Well, I agree, but I
So-
mean, if it's phased out over the course of 5 years, then it's affordable.
But yeah, but even so, if you raised it up to 140, it's still not going to cover it.
No.
Even for the next 10 years. So.
It's a long-range plan.
Right.
Right.
I guess the point here tonight is, are we willing to raise it? Right. That's the question you're asking. So that's what we need to decide is,
Yeah,
are we
I mean,
willing to even look at raising it in the
Yeah,
future?
I'm willing to raise it only if it alleviates the expensive of a repair of something else. Because, I mean, we're fully funded with staff at the fire department.
Right.
You're
No,
still short?
We're still 2 men short.
And, okay, so,
That's going to be in the new budget.
Okay. And you just hired a couple, no? Okay.
Yep.
Note who that is.
That's Andy Marcy, the fire chief for
Yes,
City
it
of
is.
Avon Park. And if he's going to speak anymore, he's going to come here to the microphone.
Please relax.
Yes, he will. What I can do for the next council meeting, council members, is bring you some options and look at the structure of residential and commercial and what kind of a hit it would be for some of this stuff, because we still got a little bit of time on this. So for the next meeting later this month, I'll bring you a few options for your consideration.
Yeah. And if you're talking about, raising taxes in any way, an assessment is typically a very fair way of raising taxes because everyone pays an assessment.
True.
So you wind up, the small businesses that you mentioned wind up getting hurt less
True.
typically
If
by
it's
a
spread across,
assessment than it
yeah.
would be by ad valorem. So, all right, does that give you your answer?
Thank you, Bernie Sanders. I appreciate your input.
Did you call me Bernie Sanders? There's going to be a fight here, folks. Hold on.
I'm just kidding.
Hold on, I got my hammer.
I'm joking.
All right. Whew. Have to recover from that one. Anyway, any other questions? Stanley, anything? Okay. All right, well, moving on. Item number 9, CDBG grant, contract, I mean.
This is the formal agreement with Guardian CRM. The council approved the sole response to the RFP. That was from Guardian CRM. This draft agreement actually formalizes the relationship between the city and the Guardian company. Just needed an approval on it.
Okay. Do we have any questions on this contract?
What was the final number? It was what, 90,000? I think I saw that somewhere in here.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't recall seeing this, but I don't see the statutorily required public records provision in here. And I would like to review it to make sure there's not any.
Jerry, I will tell you that this is identical to the one that they did 5 years ago that you approved then. Except for the clause that you're talking about in
That's-
terms of public records.
Okay, well, we need to add that.
There is a provision in there for Chapter 119. In fact, it appears twice.
Under P, statutory requirements, it says 119. That
Yep.
they will comply with all the provisions of FS 287, 287-087, and then 119.
Yeah, but that's not what that statute says. What that statute
Okay.
says is you have to have a specific provision in it that's in 14-point type, it's given the name of the person that they contact, and that specific clause in the that statute has to be in there.
So
And that-
we'll include the text.
Huh?
We'll include the text.
I can't hear you.
I said we will include the text.
Okay.
And-
And the provisions that I put in that are there because that's what the statute requires are there. So I just, just take what I had before in another agreement and put it in there is fine, but make sure it's all there because I haven't reviewed to see and make sure it still complies with the statute. Just simply saying that we'll comply with that statute is not enough.
Well, Jerry, could we just make a motion then that it get approved with your final review of it after
I
he
don't-
puts in the language?
I don't know that it needs to.
Otherwise, you
I
have to
don't-
wait another 3 weeks.
Okay,
And I know that they want to get going. We have a lot of people
Sure.
out there just itching to get, started with this grant.
I don't want it to appear as though I'm drumming up business for myself.
No, 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 no,
Just want
no.
to make sure you're complying with the statute.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
By the way, David, this is turnkey. They will do everything, won't they?
Correct.
So all they're going to do is like they did in the past, where they just submit their data and you guys just put it in a computer and shoot it off, and that's that.
They've sent us some things for some public notices that we go ahead and do, but they send it to us and we handle it, the newspaper ads and stuff.
Are they going to give us, I know that they have a plan on releasing the information, and they're going to go door to door, church to church, or however they do their advertising for this. Will you be able to give us a schedule of what how they're going to go about it so that we can put it on Facebook and
Sure.
do whatever, or maybe the newspaper or the radio, rather? I'm sorry.
Let the record show the newspaper is.
Well, this podium's in the way. I can't see behind it. I don't have my x-ray vision on.
It's an empty chair.
Okay. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we get as many people allowed to, that we possibly can
Sure.
aware of it.
Sure.
Again, I just want to comment, the reason I like to look at the agreements also is because even though I might have reviewed the agreement 5 years ago, I might be smarter today than I was that 5 years ago.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, then can we wait, I guess?
No,
You know.
I think it's fine. I mean, I'm sure I can look it over and give you an answer in a day.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we approve the CDBG formal agreement with Guardian CRM pending Jerry Beer's final review with the language that he wants to include in here.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, we have the Wawa Utilities Extension.
This is a draft agreement between the city and the Wawa Company. The city in 2018 agreed to extend the water and sewer lines south along 27 to serve that new location at Valerie Boulevard. This item offers the city attorney and staff to present to council the parameters of agreement to provide utility service to that location. There was no previous agreement with Wawa. It was just basically,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Right.
Ronnie has been working diligently on this, and I believe he's got something, if this gets approved, to get this signed fairly quickly.
Yep. Ronnie, are they okay to wait until the next meeting, or is this something we need to get done before the next meeting?
I would like to get approval tonight, if at all possible.
All right, well-
They started construction and are asking when the contractor is going to receive a notice to proceed, and I'm not at liberty to issue that.
Okay,
until
well,
we have this agreement in place.
that's the reason I was asking, is because, I mean, this is substantially the agreement. I had to plug in some numbers that we didn't have until today. I didn't get a chance to do because I was in Bowling Green today. So it won't take me very long to finish up this agreement, but
You want to take a break?
no, thanks.
Okay.
But I'm saying, if you can approve it subject to my final approval, then that should be fine. And that way, we don't have to wait till the next meeting to bless it.
Will this be used basically as a template for any future agreements?
Yes, this is actually, I call it medium-scale agreement, as opposed to somebody who's normally just hooking up and there's no construction involved whatsoever. This one's smaller than the Nucor agreement, but it's a lot of the same provisions.
Okay. Are they in the city limits? They're not, are they?
They are not.
So they'll have to sign a covenant?
That's one thing.
Right.
I'd asked, a question, but I wasn't sure, and I plugged in a number that was in city. But then he got back with me today and said it was outside the city, so we had to change those numbers. That's just some of the stuff that we have to do, is just change some of those numbers.
Okay. Are the numbers that you now have today, or was you about to ask a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Was the potable water capacity fees?
Right?
Do you have that?
And domestic wastewater, well, the water capacity fee, I actually have plugged in. This is an old version. But it was based on in-city.
Okay.
But it's based on a 1.5-inch meter, which is what they propose they're going to use, and that we're going to provide. The tap-in fee, just found out from Ronnie earlier, is going to, the one you have in your ordinance should be sufficient for that. And that includes the meter. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I'll take out 5.2. That's just basically what we're talking about. So long as they approve it the way we give it to them. If they want to make changes, then we'll have to wait till the next meeting to approve it.
Has there been any discussions with Wawa on these numbers?
Not to the numbers specifically, Mayor, but to the effect that there would be a utility services agreement that would need to be signed.
Okay.
So they are aware of that.
Okay. They seem okay with that?
Yes, sir.
That
Okay.
was my question. Okay.
All right. Well, having said that, if there's no further questions, I'll be looking for a motion.
Please make the motion subject to my approval of the agreement and
Okay.
modification.
I move that we approve the Wawa utility extension subject to the attorney's approval upon his review, which is identified as section E10 in our agenda package.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes?
Councilmember Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Council discussion, we have item number 11, Deputy Mayor Jim Bernard's code enforcement reports.
I can go over that with you. Deputy Mayor Bernard is ill tonight and could not make the meeting, but he had asked me to generate a report
on code enforcement activity. And as you can see on there, there's been 385 closed cases, 308 initial inspections, 346 re-inspections, 308 courtesy letters, 69 delinquent notices, 3 additional notes, 1 notice to appear, 277 certified letters have gone out, 290 verbal warnings. While I'm speaking on code enforcement, I had this on my my end discussion, but the gentleman that y'all chose to be the magistrate did accept, and he is starting, his first day will be the hearing next week on the 17th.
Awesome.
Next Wednesday. So that's code enforcement. And I'm not sure exactly what Deputy Mayor Bernard was wanting other than this, but this is the report that he asked me to generate.
Okay. Do we have any questions on that?
There is a list over at City Hall, though, right, that gives the specifics of every code enforcement violation. That's posted on the bulletin board. So if anyone wants to go look and see who has been, you know, cited.
Did we do that?
On the bulletin board, you will find the cases that are before the magistrate.
Okay.
Those are posted. We do not post the individual
Citations.
citations.
Is that something you used to do?
They used to do a quarterly that would have the citations in it.
That's
But I
pretty
mean.
thick book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was, 40 pages, 2 sides. Yeah.
Did anybody ever look at it?
Yes.
I'm-
I know, I mean, I know that, I don't know, you must have looked at it, you were here, I don't know. I mean, some people from the audience did, but now you can't post them on the page anymore,
Is that
so-
something you'd like me to do?
I'm okay with this right here. I don't need another one, but I think that he's the one that used to get like a more defined report, Mr. Bernard.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he was
All right.
always, because, I don't know, that's what he liked. He liked a more detailed thing.
Okay.
I just remember that from him. He may not want that now, I don't know.
And, I think it's just my gut reaction is it's better not to include it in the agenda itself, because it's just like a form of public shaming, so.
Agreed, yeah.
So, thanks.
I think the way it used to be the strap number, that
Mhm.
that report, and it didn't have anybody's name on it, but anybody could look it up if they
Well,
was
it's,
that
it's public
interested.
record anyways.
Yeah.
If you
Right.
really want to know, you can go to City Hall.
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
get- yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
So, any other questions on that?
I just have a question
ahead.
on weekend code enforcement. So are they working Saturdays and Sundays?
We're
Or-
back up to full staff now. We did a transfer for Marvin's job. Todd Williams, Tarnis Williams, transferred from the street department to code enforcement, and he is getting trained at this time right now. So no, I don't have anybody working the weekends, but I will very soon. And all 3 of them are going to be taking the certification class in the next few months. 2 of them in Orlando and 1 of them in, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale, but I'm not sure exactly about that, but that'll be a good thing for us.
So when they do start working on weekends, a lot of stuff happens on weekends.
Correct.
So would we or the public have access to any of the code enforcement staff on weekends? So if we see something, we can notify them immediately?
We can have an on-call number given to you to where you would know, and it'd probably be better to come through me or come through Marnita, but we can make something like that happen.
A lot of violations on weekends.
Understood.
Any other questions? Seeing none, moving on to the city manager's report.
You have my report in front of you. The
Yes,
red letters are the ones that are, that I've got some new information on. I am meeting Matt Baker tomorrow to look at the Brickell building. He's the insurance adjuster, our insurance adjuster. Meeting with him, and also going to look at Classic Caladiums to see if we can add that in as a claim as well. Moving down 18 East Pine Street, Phase 1 environmental is complete. There's no issues. We will proceed with closing on the property, and then we'll await direction from the council to, you tell me what you want me to do about it. I'll probably go ahead and start soliciting some bids for tearing the house down, if that's what you want.
Have you gotten a bill for that phase 1 yet?
I do.
How much is it?
It was $1,800.
Okay.
No, that's actually pretty cheap.
I could be mixing that up with something else, but I think it was 1,800.
It's usually like closer to 3. But the title work's all been checked and everything?
That's what I'll hire a closing attorney to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, next one, Councilmember Spurlock, did you bring back the things on the, okay, have you made your notes in there?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So we'll go ahead and start compiling some stuff on the Christmas decoration process and have a report for you at the next meeting. GovDeals.com, surplus items to be inventoried and sold online. Declaring property surplus and trying to get rid of it is a very cumbersome proposition at times. It's labor intensive on our part. GovDeals.com, Ricky and I both have had experience with them when we were with the county. Cost us nothing. They handle everything. All we have to do is post some pictures on their site and a description and give them a timeline as to how long they want to run the auction. It's an online auction. We set the terms of it. We can set reserve prices. We can do the whole 9 yards. They handle everything, including collecting the money for it. And then they give the people so many days to come pick up the stuff. They show their receipt where they've paid for it. We collect a check once a month from GovDeals.com. The buyer pays GovDeals.com for that service. It does not cost the city anything. So it's a pretty good process. Are you familiar with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I added the provision for online or other auctions to the procurement policies for my other cities, but I'm not sure you have it. So in order to authorize that, you have to have it in your procurement policy because there is a statutory
For disposition?
of city property, right?
Okay.
And I think there's a code provision as well that we may have to look at whether it needs to be modified or not in order to include that. In this city, I'm pretty sure you have a code provision, but I know you have procurement policy, and it probably provides for disposal of property.
Very good. Where I was going with this is that it can also include real estate. We had decided at a previous meeting to go ahead and destroy the Wild building, and I don't have bids back on that. In fact, I haven't even done a complete RFQ on it yet. That might be something you want to consider, seeing if we can sell it. And we've got a dozen or so lots around Avon Park that we've acquired through code enforcement liens and stuff that are really, in my opinion, of no use to the city. We could sell those as real estate on this website as well.
Just note that if you want to establish the value by appraisal, that is protected from under 112 from disclosure. The Public Records Act has got an exemption for that, but for the period, and it's specific, so you have to look at that and see what it says. But because I know once before we had an appraisal done and it was disclosed at the meeting, which kind of defeats the purpose of the auction thing.
Well,
so you want to set your
minimum bid.
Minimum bid
Yeah.
based on something like that appraisal.
Well, at least recouping the hard costs that are in it, and then whatever marketable value is on it as well. But
Right.
if that's something that y'all have interest in, and I would certainly want to pursue it because it'll take a load off staff to do this.
Well, one thing I'd like to see is whatever lots we own, if there's a bunch of lots here and there, that we really take a look at which ones they are, because some of them could be turned into parks, other ones might be needed for some kind of water mitigation or, just trees or something. So I know that other communities are buying good real estate for their own purpose and then they're leasing it out. I don't have a problem with stuff like that either, but I just want to make sure that we don't sell everything that we have. We need to look and
Well,
see if there's any value for parking or whatnot.
Code enforcement has produced a lot of what they call pocket parks, which
Mhm.
are basically just a lot in a community with
Well, I know there's maintenance involved with that as well, so.
That's what we were talking about doing at the Wild location.
Okay.
Right.
And that's all I have at the moment.
Can I ask you in regards to the pending projects, I don't know if you had heard anything back from the Brickell Building people that came and looked at it, anything back from them? The people that came and looked at the Brickell Building, remember?
Okay.
The couple?
Yes. What I told you at the last meeting
is that we had to see what the insurance adjuster was going to
Okay.
do, and then I would know exactly how much cost we have so we can establish a price.
All right.
And then y'all would have to decide, do we do that at public auction? Do we do it on an online auction? Do we do it with a sealed bid? That would be, right now, sealed bid and public auction are the only two options for getting rid of real estate with your current procurement policy.
All right. I wrote a couple of things here, but before I get to my little list, I just had a couple of other questions. In regards to the Boys and Girls Club flooding, I mean, what's taking so long with that building getting finished?
That was an insurance issue and not getting enough bids. We've got several bids on replacing the floor and doing some of the work on the drywall. Needed some construction work on the inside where they had to come up this far on the drywall. We got like one bid on an epoxy floor. We got one bid on a wood floor. We got one bid on the rubberized floor. And we really needed, for comparative purposes, we needed more than that, more than one bid. And the insurance adjuster needed to be involved in that as well. And I've got a note on my desk to get back in touch with the insurance adjuster on that as well. So we haven't actually made a firm decision on what we're doing with it yet. They're using the building.
Yeah, I just didn't know if, the floors were done yet. On the DEO grant, I mean, our Plan B, did that secondary grant that was applied for last week or something, was that reviewed by the state? The loan, the forgivable loan?
It's in their court right now. We're waiting to hear back from them. The one that I was looking at through the federal, the economic development.
So right now, the only one that we've got out there is the original one of $750.
No,
Right.
971.
No, we've submitted, subsequent to the 971-500, we've submitted two applications. The first one was for the Rural Infrastructure Fund.
Right.
And then after that, we submitted a separate grant, which is the forgivable loan grant. And that's,
So the rural infrastructure one was the one that was due on July the 6th. I remember, you all
no,
said we need to get it out.
That's the second one.
That was not the rural infrastructure?
That was done back in June.
Okay, so the rural infrastructure, what are they saying?
We won't know for at least another month.
I'm sorry?
Within the next 30 days.
30 days?
Yeah.
And I sent you an email, David. Governor DeSantis just announced he has $40 million in the same job growth grant that was provided to us when we got the original grant. And I didn't know, I know someone in his office, if you want me to call, or I can give you the number to see if maybe they would release additional funds, because that could be our Plan C. If the infrastructure does not come through, we're still going to be on the hook for $1.5 million.
Is that DEO?
Yeah, I mean, the DEO is, well, no, this is for the governor's office. The job growth grant is a one-time amount of money that the governor gets, and oftentimes it's already tabbed for something because it doesn't even go through legislature. It's just a pass-through from the federal government.
Nice.
So you're talking about CBERS, the community-based funding initiatives?
No, this is called a job growth grant. This is what the original grant was when the original project was going to get done. When we got the $970,000 or so, that was
What
a job
Councilmember
growth.
Sutherland is talking about is a continuation of what was in place in the past, but he's changed it. The program has different priorities now. It's still housed in DEO. It's still a job infrastructure grant. I read the release. It's geared now more towards strategic projects and planning. I know he's already released funds to some small communities in the area. But there's an opportunity there to.
I think that we should call, or someone can call up there and at least exhaust that resource, because if one of these doesn't come through, there's $750,000 that we're going to be short on, and I think we need to just push every button that we possibly can.
Agreed.
Well,
I'm just
We
saying.
have applied for every opportunity that's come our way so
All
far.
right, so the rural infrastructure grant, we won't know for another 30 days.
have you checked the community-based financing initiatives? You get those through your legislative delegation?
Yeah, but Jerry, that's a whole year's worth in legislative. I mean, you have to go through the process of the legislature. You wouldn't get funded for that until May of next year.
Yeah, they don't even meet on that until like February or March, do they?
If it
Oh, they
survives the
meet-
veto.
They meet in October, November for that, usually. Whenever your legislative delegation meets here, because they start, almost.
They're
beginning
starting
of the year.
now. They're starting now so that the ladies up there can start drafting all of the legislative paperwork to have it ready in January. But
yeah.
come May, they're done. They go on vacation.
Okay. Well, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but I
because
mean,
of-
I think that's a good option. I mean, if we
for
knew that it was.
Future funding.
Yeah, but if you knew that it was coming, then it would be affordable, and then you could just, if they could do an advance reimbursement or some
Well,
contract or something.
And it doesn't require you to be ready or anything else. It's just a matter of whether they think the project's nifty or not.
Well, I think it is. It has met at least, a lot of attention. Anyway, I just think that that's just another venue. I'm just concerned. There was a question also at the last meeting, Ricky, I remember asking you, and you said you would try to figure out the terms in which the utility impact fund, the impact fees that go for lines versus ones that go towards the actual utility sewer plant, to designate exactly how much money we have in each one of those two separate revenue sources, to see how much money we actually have that can be built for utility lines versus improvement to the sewer plant.
I don't have that number, but I
Okay,
can
but you
make sure I
remember
get it.
now?
Yes.
Because that right there depends, that really tells us how much money we have for utility lines,
Right.
which may not be what we have thought has been, because we've discovered tonight that our jewel isn't, what we thought it was. So if those numbers if we had that, then we'll know exactly what goes towards the utility lines on the north end of town, as well as the ones going to Wawa.
Yeah, there should be a reservation of the fund balance in that fund for that.
So, I mean, it ought to be just one little line in there.
Yeah.
What else you
I
got?
apologize.
That's okay.
don't
That's okay,
recall.
but if you could get
I'll
that, that would be really
Make sure I get that
helpful.
information.
It helps me set my mind. I had some other questions, unless anyone else wants to talk about what we've talked about already, but I do have a couple of other ones.
Go ahead.
All right, so the smell off of Lake and Main, was it ever found what the issue was there that only seems to happen when certain people are around and then no one else smells it when they go by? But it's not a gas line, but one time it was a gas line because someone's eyes were watering so bad they could hardly see. And on another occasion, it smelled like septic. So,
We combed that area very well, trying to isolate what the potential cause of that odor was. The only thing that we could come up with is a manhole behind what used to be the bank building. There are 2 PVC pipes leading from that building and tying into that manhole. We temporarily capped those lines to see if what was happening, if the odor was actually leaving our sewer system and traveling up into that building, ultimately to the vent stack on the roof, and then emanating outside into the parking lot. So that is what we have done to try to remedy the issue, because honestly, we have combed that area and we cannot find any other source other than that cause.
Well, I just want to throw this out there, and you know probably more about it than I do. I know sometimes we have sporadic sewage smells. It's because somebody like a restaurant that's supposed to have a grease trap is not pumping their grease trap. And that can just be a ghastly smell in your sewer line. Just right out there.
Right.
it's kind of from that area too. But the other thing was that they smelled a gas. I mean, that their eyes were watering from an actual gas, as in propane, just gas.
Could be-
And that someone had been working on construction there. Some utility company was over there with the cracked sidewalks, and they were working on the gas lines. And could they have, left something behind, or, who knows?
It's possible, but natural gas is going to dissipate in the atmosphere rather quickly,
Yeah.
where the sewer gas may tend to linger.
And that's
Okay.
hydrogen sulfide will definitely make your eyes water.
Right.
But you haven't been called when the actual smell is active.
Actually, we have. I mean, as soon as we're made aware of it, Dave Wakeland will actually stop what he's doing, drive
Okay.
over there, and try to determine where the smell is coming from, what's causing it, and that is the only thing that we have found so far is 2 PVC pipes coming into that manhole that we do not know where they go to. So we didn't want to permanently cap it because we weren't sure if they're active and in use. So we temporarily put something in it to stop any
Okay.
sewer gas from traveling up into those pipes.
There's no little machine, like a little Geiger counter that sniffs things out? I mean, is there there's no handheld device that
There-
monitors this?
There's a hydrogen sulfide meter, but you'd have to have pretty good concentration to pick it up.
Right.
Okay, my next question then, so you're working on that. The next question is, where are the inmates?
They work on the highway,
Okay, I haven't seen them.
and they're
Okay.
only 4 days a week. Now, last week, on Friday, I had them on the mall, on the sidewalk areas on the mall, cutting weeds.
Okay,
One day.
okay.
Now, they do not work on Monday, so you wouldn't have seen them today.
And we have 2 guards. 1 guard?
One.
Okay. And I think, oh, one other thing. The basketball court on Main Street that Councilman Bernard wants is it's on a slope. I mean, it kind of comes this way towards Main Street and kind of goes downhill towards the railroad track. I mean, I'm obviously exaggerating the slope on it, but I mean, aren't basketballs going to be like, I know they're going to be going all over the place, but is there going to be any issue with, remedying the slope there? Or are we going to, what, it just seems like it's going to be a constant chasing of the ball. Anyway, I'm just putting that out there.
It would have to be sloped to keep water from collecting on it anyway. It's probably sloped now.
But I mean, the tennis courts are flat and, water doesn't collect on those. There is a little bit, but this is actually, drive by. Just go put a tennis ball on it and just watch that thing just take off and chase it. Other thing is, on RPAC, I know that there's a county budget. I don't know if it's a hearing or if it's just an announcement, but I believe they're having one tomorrow at SFSC. If it's not tomorrow, it's next Tuesday. And I was just wondering, what was the outcome of the last RPAC meeting where they were talking about limiting the amount of funding that would be coming to Avon, to all the municipalities?
We prioritized a project, which was the complete renovation of the Donaldson Park restroom. We prioritized that as our priority because we were told to give one priority basically,
Okay.
and that's what we did.
Are there any other recreation projects that we're working on right now?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Have we not put a plan together for stage? Dallas Park.
Not yet.
That may be something we want to talk about.
And then the last thing I had was on the, where are we with the agreement with the Nucor company?
Ronnie and I are working on the
Okay.
response to their response
Okay,
to our draft.
so that's progressing though?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It's just a huge agreement.
okay. And last but not least, on the future church service center or the Yana building, what's the status of that? I mean, they're no longer in there. What are we waiting for?
It's on the list there. We're waiting on their attorney on
Well,
Giannis.
he's back from Ireland. He's been back for a month.
We're waiting on their
Just
attorney.
FYI,
been
I've got his
having-
cell phone number if you want to call Mr.
I've-
Livingston. I've got him right here.
I've been talking to Mr. Yana on
Okay.
a weekly basis.
Well, Jerry, at what point do we just say, okay, the lease is up, they are no longer inside the building, and what's the holdup?
They own the buildings.
Okay, but,
With the lease of the land is up, the buildings come with the land on the lease. It's not really not.
so,
But if you want to give me that name, he won't correspond with
With me.
city manager because he has to, he knows they're
right, no,
represented by
I get
council.
that, but, enough.
Okay.
At what point do we keep on waiting? We need that building.
What-
So either they're going to leave it or they're going to take it.
Well,
because-
the lease is up.
Correct.
Did we say in the lease that they get to take the building with them?
Well, it's as is, I believe. I think they were under the assumption that we were going to pay for the infrastructure that they put on it, and
No.
the contract does not state that.
No.
So-
They dropped that. They're giving it to us, but it's my understanding that they have to draw up like a quitclaim deed or something to say,
It's always better to have them do that, but,
Yep.
it's Florida law that it goes with the property. If it leaves property and there's nothing else said, that they get to take it with them. And unless it involves, what they call shop equipment.
So
But,
who pays for the quitclaim deed? Who does all of this? Is that us?
yeah, it's just not much. Quitclaim deeds are like,
But if he's working with his attorney, then shouldn't that attorney?
that would be the
Have that?
best situation is that they, and if we're talking about real property as opposed to personal property, then, it would be bill of sale. But if we're talking about real property, then of course it would be a deed, quitclaim deed. I like to see both.
But other than the building, is there anything else on the premises?
Lots.
He's got a lot of junk on there that has to be removed, and he said that he's going to take it off there.
Okay.
When does the lease run out?
It's
Several
months
months
ago.
ago.
March.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you want to give me the name, I can try and jack him up a little bit, so to speak.
Well, it comes down to just taking back possession of our building there,
Yeah,
And if the church service center doesn't have a place, they're inherently from that area anyway. I'd like to get them back there.
okay.
And they ready to go too.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
ready.
Mhm.
They're ready to move in there.
Yeah.
Calling me all the time. It's like, okay.
Okay. What else you got?
3 times she said it was the last thing.
It's never the last, trust me.
I did. I just wanted to go, I know you had a lengthy list and I just had some questions on some of them. So, you didn't have anything on it, but, I just wanted to see if there was anything else. I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay.
Good items.
Anything else on the
Yeah,
city manager report?
I got some.
Yes, sir.
I've kept track of all of the rosters that we've been giving out, and I want to give everybody one of them and give David one too, because I've kept track of all of them. There was the first one, you can pass that down. Pass that one down. Pass that one down. Here's one for you, boss man. Here's 2. Here's 2. I think that's enough. There's 2. There's your 2.
Yeah.
Here's 3. 2. 3. That first one I give you is only 1 page. You might want to give it back. There's 3. And here's your 3, Dave.
We got this one tonight, I think.
I just put it back to you. There's your 3. So we're all together now on everything.
By the way, these smell good. They smell like perfume.
All right, what you got?
That's it.
Okay, so what are we supposed to do with
Thank
these?
you.
I'm sorry?
What are we supposed to do with these?
Well, I mean, I'm
Just
sure
giving
you
them to us.
This-
compare it to the new one we got tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one that's number 3 here.
Yep.
That was to 12 March of 19. So the one that I gave you tonight would update it to June 14th.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I did discuss this with you, just to remind our conversation right before we started. We're already in July, and I know that you've hired additional individuals, so the numbers already have changed on the per hour basis thing, so.
Do you want me to give you a list every time we change employees, every time somebody leaves, or every time?
No,
a new one
I'm
comes?
just, when I was here, I remember one night he asked for something, and I just said I wanted an updated list myself, so, yeah. If you had more people, then these numbers are skewed. I know that you've been looking at the hourly rate of all salaries per hour for the entire city, and right now you're only $1 over. But our conversation before the council meeting, we decided that there were, I think, 2 or 3 other jobs that had been added to that, so those numbers are going to be higher. So, I look at this as a budget thing for next year. I don't know about you, Stanley, but
Well, the reason there's 3 is because, it took so long to get them all. It took a while, and that's why I've kept track 1, 2, and 3. That's what about.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else for the good of the city?
Mayor, I think there are some residents in the back who I've spoken to earlier. They want to talk. They didn't fill a form out, but
Yeah, if you have anything to say, you can come up. Just have to state your name and address.
yeah.
No.
You're it.
Let's give them a-
Name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is John Mullins. My address is 1801 West Gingham Road,
Okay,
here in Avon Park, but technically it's not in Avon Park.
got it.
Um,
What can we do for you?
I need good water.
Need good water.
Yeah, the house that we live in out here, the water is putrid.
Is it well or is it?
It's well water.
Okay.
My grandparents have bought the house that they had it built back in 1991, and it's like that area of Avon Park is a third world country.
What is your
Where is that
address?
at?
1801 West Gingham Road.
Where is Gingham?
It's across from the airport, off of 64. Irvington is the main crossroad there.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's like 3 roads just outside the city limits. We can't get water out there, it seems to be. We can't get cable out there.
I'm assuming you've requested water from the city in the past?
I have, and there was supposedly the gentleman that owns the property across from the airport. There was going to be maybe a deal, but he decided not to sell. Didn't want to allow the city, and I guess the county or the state, to use easement there because it
Okay.
would affect his how he could use the property.
It's John Bartley.
As I understood, there was another plan to go down Taunton Road to supply water down there. There are water lines down there, which is odd because there's a water line that runs up Irvington, stops just past Hyde, and it's servicing like 2 streets. And those streets are no more than, I'd say, 300 feet from my home. And I've been basically the past 3 years just begging to try and get water out there. And I understand it's a project here and project there and everything else, but it just seems like I know when my grandparents built the house in 91, I know what it was like, and everything's the same. We've got a dirt road. CenturyLink is the only internet provider out there. They're ripping people off what they provide. And I understand the only way to get water is through the city. I mean, I guess the other ways is through the county or whatever, but I mean, there's just so many people out there that I'm sure would appreciate water line being run out there. If we can maybe run a water line down to Wawa, which is much further down, there's a water line there, and I don't know what I need to do to be able to get water. It's you look at the water, sometimes it comes out black, sometimes, most of the time, it's a lime green. It's putrid as all get out. Talk about bad smells. Every time I brush my teeth, I have everything to do from gagging and vomiting because just the smell of it is just horrible.
Mr. Mullins, what I can
Yes,
do
sir.
on this is I can go ahead and do a survey on your property and find out what it would actually cost to get a water line to you. If you'll give me your phone number after this meeting, I'll be happy to do a follow-up on this and contact you.
Yes, sir, will do.
David, do you know whether or not there's any more funding? There was a grant that was done for a lot of water lines and people hooked up to it years ago.
That
and
was DEP.
Is there,
CDBG does a lot of that too.
yeah, but it's too late to do a CDBG because we're doing housing. You're going to have to wait until the next cycle. for
DEP
a-
was doing a lot of that through the Superfund when they were cleaning up the pesticides and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
That's, you have to have the pesticide in there in order to get that grant though.
Yeah,
Is there Grove near you?
yes.
There are. Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to look at another DEP grant, obviously. I mean,
Have you ever
for-
had a pesticide check on your well?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay.
The health department does that, don't they?
Yeah.
Do they do that for free?
Yes.
Or you take the sample of water to the, I don't know how that
A
works.
couple years back, I was told maybe contact the health department, and they suggested that I contact some company down towards Buttonwood Bay, and they told me that it was just cost. Pardon me, it
Prohibitive?
wasn't cost effective for me.
Yeah.
I'm a disabled veteran, and I don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, that was probably referring you to Short Environmental Labs. Yeah.
I believe that was. They
Okay.
said down by Buttonwood Bay, and it was something $70, $80. I don't even recall, but that was a couple years ago, and I'm like, I just don't have the money to throw that out there.
We'll do an analysis on this and see what we can do to help you.
I appreciate it.
Sure, just give me your number after the meeting here.
Yes, sir.
Just so the council is aware, a year ago, we were in intense negotiation with a landowner near his property, and we were near completion of getting an easement in place to run a line down 64 West on the north side. At the last minute, the property owner walked away. We don't know what happened.
But we own the easement right there by the airport. Why couldn't we
This is
look
on
at
the-
it?
We have a line on the south side of
Yeah.
64.
So you're talking across the
This gentleman's
street?
on the north side. We do have a 4-inch line not far from his house, so we could extend some lines. But it's a question of
But I just want to remind you, I guess Ronnie knows about this, but, you know, you really need a master plan of your water lines because you really know what size line you want to put there. Is it going to be a 2-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, 12-inch, depending on what the future holds for that area, so.
About how many houses would benefit from this, Mr. Mullins?
I know there's 8 houses alone on my street. I can't tell you how many other houses there are that go out towards Olivia and out that way, but there's quite a few houses out there. I'd say a couple hundred easily that might
Okay.
benefit from this.
And in the past, I do know that it was easier to get developer agreements for easements because it was private property and there was always some kind of a trade out. And the reason for that, not only was it easier, but it was because you wouldn't have to have the county involved with any of the inspection of the installation of the lines.
Well, not just that, but if you ever expand, they widen
Well,
the
if they
road,
expand, then you have to remove them and relocate them.
Right.
I get that,
It's
but.
expensive.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't know what Highway 64 is going to be in the future, but if if we have them on our side, all we have to do is go across the street at this point and figure out where to go get that access. So, isn't the westbound side of 64, I mean, if we have it on the southbound side of 64, then all you have to do is go under across the street. Are the easements that you all were talking about, were they going on the westbound side of the north side of 64?
Yes.
they would have run on the north side of 64,
Yeah.
going west.
Okay, so why not have it on the cities, on this side? I mean, we own the airport
We
there.
do have a line on the south side.
Okay,
You just have to jack and bore underneath the
okay.
road,
Well, but I
which
mean,
is
why
expensive.
bother with a developer? Just do it on our side and cross over where you have to.
It's a lot cheaper if the developer's willing to play ball. It's so
But they're
much
not.
cheaper. Hey, if you want to pay to jack underneath the road, that's
No, I'm
an
just
option
saying,
that we have.
it's cheaper
Let
to
me-
jack
let me
and
get
bore.
some
What is it,
options.
$18 per lineal foot to jack and bore underneath a road?
I don't know. We'll find out soon.
My understanding was that option was not pursued at the time because, number one, it was very costly, and the second reason was you have to get involved with DOT permitting.
Right.
So,
Better today
The
before
DOT
it's 4-lane.
But at the same time, its involvement with the DOT, yeah, it makes it a little more difficult, but if you hire somebody to do it, because we were doing all this work ourselves, it was all done in-house. You didn't have to have someone inspect it to see whether or not you were 1/4 of an inch deeper than you should have been. That was part of the reason, that it was just simpler for us to do it ourselves. But, if a DEP grant could be gotten or something like that, then, if there's about 100 houses out there, it sounds like a high rate of return for the future.
Marvin might be acceptable to going across some blueberries in that.
Stanley, we can't hear you.
So the dilly was.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know.
It may
There's an
take,
open middle there, he might let you run it right straight through there.
it takes a while, but, there's also the USDA grants associated with that, whether part grant, part loan, low-cost loan, through RUS, Rural Utility
Right.
Services, USDA. Just throw that out there.
Yeah, but that doesn't alleviate his problem. You're still gonna get an estimate for him, but I mean, are we talking about that if he wants water, that he's gonna have to pay for the lines to get to where he is?
Well, that's,
Let me see what we're looking at, and then we'll find out what options are going to be
Right.
best.
Okay.
If we're only talking about, 100 feet or so, it's not going to be that bad, but it's.
Who paid for the lines that went over to Chaplain McNutt's property up there on Avon Park Lakes? I think we did that ourselves.
but
I have no idea.
But that's what I've been trying to convince you all not to do, okay? Because you never recover the cost of those lines in property taxes or revenue from utilities. Just throw that out there. And you all have said that you don't want a main extension fee, so.
Right.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we are looking for a motion to adjourn. Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned. Good enough.
That'll work.
I think he's talking about dilly.
It's owned by Marvin now. John Marvin.
It was